What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. In today's video, we're going to give you our season preview for the Chicago Bears. All that and much more coming your way right now! All right, before we get into today's video, be sure to hit that subscribe button and like the video as it will help us out tremendously. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's video. All right, Nick, with the 2022 NFL season fast approaching, training camps are right around the corner. We have another season preview to get to. Today, we're going to be talking about the Chicago Bears. The Bears, that's right, the Chicago Bears, they have gone through quite the facelift this year and not in a positive way. So Bears fans, this is not going to be a pretty sight for you. I hope you can hang on because we do have some light at the end of the tunnel stuff for you toward the end of this video. But Nick, when you take a look at the roster turnover, we have to start with some of these key losses. Khalil Mack, Allen Robinson, Akiem Hicks, massive losses for this team. This is something that I don't expect them to be able to overcome, especially with the lack of getting people to replace them over the course of free agency and obviously not having top tier draft picks after trading up for Justin Fields last year. It's not going to be pretty for this team. And when you take a look at some of the players that they did get, Tavon Young, a decent player, Nicholas Morrow, and then Byron Pringle. I mean, if we're saying Byron Pringle is one of your top three key additions to your team, something is not right with this. And we have to take a look at the Chicago Bears as arguably one of the worst teams in the NFL. And Nick, why don't you get us started taking a look at the schedule? First 6 weeks, what is the outlook like for the Bears?
Starting off with the first 6 games of the season, we have the Bears going 1-5 to start the year. And looking at the first 2 games of the season, you've got the 49ers and you've got the Packers. The 49ers going to be an interesting team to watch out for with Trey Lance taking over as the full-time starter at quarterback. We don't know what we're going to get from this San Francisco 49ers team, but we do know that they have Deebo Samuel, and that's all that matters because he is the offense in of itself, and he's going to be able to get them past the Chicago Bears in week 1. I don't think that there's anybody left on the Chicago Bears defense that will be able to stop Deebo, and it's just not going to be a good day for Chicago. Going into week 2, same thing. The Green Bay Packers may have lost a lot of players, but that does not mean that they will crumble to the Chicago Bears, especially with Aaron Rodgers coming back under center. He's going to find a way to get them past the Chicago Bears, which he loves oh so much. But then going into week 3, we see a little bit of a reprieve. The Houston Texans taking on the Chicago Bears, and the Texans having a very bad offseason, just as bad as Chicago Bears, gives the Bears some light at the end of the tunnel. And with Justin Fields, he's making strides and improvements and will be able to get past the Houston Texans. He may not have the offensive line necessary to compete against most teams in the NFL, but the pass rush for the Texans is not there. He'll have some time in the pocket to work and get used to his new weapons, and I believe that this will be enough for the Bears to get their first victory of the season. But then the last 3 games of the 6-week stretch, the Giants, Vikings, and Commanders, it's just going to be very tough. A lot of defensive strengths for these teams, going to be enough to get some pressure on Justin Fields. Just like last season, Fields will be on the run for most of this season, and it's not going to be good. The Bears, tough stretch to start the season, but they do have some players like Justin Fields that will give them some hope going into the next 12 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, taking a look at this schedule, obviously through week 12, it doesn't get much better, sitting at a record of 2-10. Nick, I haven't seen this much red since the last episode of The Boys on Amazon Prime. I mean, this is just absolutely ridiculous. The Chicago Bears, I'm not going to go game by game because it's just going to be the same thing over and over again. The fact is that the Bears did not do enough this offseason to be able to compete in the division, let alone the rest of the NFL. And this offense is only predicated on Justin Fields. You have only given him Darnell Mooney and David Montgomery to work with. I do not expect this offense to be able to score points at will, especially with how lackluster at best this offensive line has been. Taking a look at the defensive side of the ball, it is just not a pretty sight. They are not going to be able to stop some of these dynamic offenses that you see. The Patriots got much better on offense. The Cowboys can score at will. The Dolphins adding Tyreek Hill. The Detroit Lions got better, adding Jameson Williams this draft class. This is something that the Chicago Bears need to vastly address, and I don't understand how they went through this entire offseason trying to just work with some of the players that they have and not improving this roster. It is one hell of a team that you're bringing into this season, and I do not expect it to go well for them. Nick, why don't you bring us home weeks 13 through 18? Does it get any better?
No, not even close. It gets even worse, ending the season with 5 losses with a bye week in week 14. Going 2-15 for the year. This is just not the year for the Chicago Bears, and when it rains, it pours. Luckily, they do have their first round pick next season, and they will be able to improve this team through the draft, possibly through the offseason, as they will have a ton of cap space to work with. They're going to have to look towards the future, and that future being next offseason, because the 2022 NFL season will not treat the Chicago Bears or their fans very well, and it's just not going to be a good sight. Ending the year, we got the Packers in week 13, not going to be good. The Eagles being one of the strongest up-and-coming teams, not going to be good for the Bears as well. Bills, Lions, Vikings, there's nothing good here for the Bears to hold their hat on. Nothing is going to go right for them. These defenses going to take care of one of the worst, if not the worst, offensive line in the NFL that the Chicago Bears currently have. And with the defense losing their best weapons, there's nothing here for them to improve on, nothing for them to look at and say, we have a shot, because every other offense will be able to take on this Bears defense with ease, and there's nothing that new head coach Matt Eberflus will do. Nothing he did in Indianapolis will translate, and it's going to be a very rocky year one for him.
When it's all said and done, 2-15 is exactly where I expected the Bears to be. Taking a look at their roster, this is not a roster built to compete right now. This is a full rebuild. Justin Fields was the first domino to fall, and we're going to see a lot of issues along the way. But Bears fans, I talked about at the beginning of the video, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. When you take a look at the salary cap situation heading into next year, the Bears lead the pack with $95 million of effective cap space available to them. They are able to go out and get top tier free agents. Nick, you talked about having their first round draft pick back with them. These are the things that they are going to need to build this team, to build this roster, to be able to compete. We see that the Packers are starting to phase out Aaron Rodgers toward the very end of his career. The Minnesota Vikings are trying to figure out whether Kirk Cousins can continue on to be their quarterback. There are still question marks in their own division. The Chicago Bears can improve this roster. It's about just getting through this season, making sure that you can get there. And the light at the end of the tunnel is you have next year, you have money, you have draft picks. Let's see what you can do with this new regime. All right, well, I want to hear from you guys. Let us know in the comments down below what you think of the Chicago Bears record predictions. Let us know what your thoughts are about this team moving forward, and let us know in the comments down below what you think of this overall. All right, well, that's going to be all for now. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.